All right, everybody, if we could get everybody to take a table and or pick a place to sit, that'd be great. All right. Well, I'd like to thank you all for coming this evening. This will be our second workshop in association with the General Plan Local Coastal Program update process. This one's going to be focused on an offshoot of that process, which is the Downtown and Waterfront Strategic Plan. And so we're going to be looking at items and design options and things for design guidelines in those areas. Before we do that, before we get into this, though, we do have to call this meeting to order because it is actually a special General Plan Advisory Committee meeting. And so if I could get Chair Teff to come up here and do that, that'd be fantastic.
Good evening. So this is a special meeting of the Morro Bay General Plan Advisory Committee. I see that a quorum of members are here, so the meeting is officially called to order. And I've now completed my function for the evening. I'll turn it back to Scott.
All right, thanks, Chair Teft. I think we're just going to hop right into it now. So I'd like to have Lorelei come up here, and she'll start the festivities.
Great. Thank you, everybody. A few items just to start out. This meeting is being televised, so you will see the cameras around the room. So just be aware that that this is live. And if you can also be cognizant, they've reminded me to make sure that if you're standing and blocking a camera view, just kind of be aware of where those are. So the people at home can come along with us on our journey this evening. A couple of introductions. You've met Scott at the city. We do have some facilitators here from city staff. We also have Joan and Ryan, if you'll raise your hands. We also have our GPAC committee, General Plan Advisory Committee, to spell out the acronym. Can I have all of our GPAC members stand up briefly and say hi? You'll see that they are kind of dispersed around the room. Their role this evening is to join us at the tables and be their ambassadors kind of this process and project for the general plan. And they will be here to listen and to ask clarifying questions and to help take notes if they're comfortable with that. And just be sure that they're hearing what the members of the community are to kind of help keep their finger on the pulse of Morro Bay throughout this process. We also have our consultant team here. My name's Lorelei Capel. I'm with Michael Baker International. I'm leading the Downtown Waterfront Strategic Plan process. We also have Tammy Seal with Michael Baker International on our general plan team, and Amy Sinsheimer. And we also have Christelle Black. Sorry, thank you so much. Right back in the room. And she's our lead facilitator as well. So with that, we'll go ahead and see, do we have our elected officials in the room this evening as well? Oh, there we are. Thank you. I didn't see you come in. So go ahead and you've seen all of our group here, and you can ask questions, and they can direct us to the right people, or direct you to the right people if you need anything answered as we move forward. So tonight we are here, a couple housekeeping items, but we're really here to share information about this project. We are here to talk about the Downtown Waterfront Strategic Plan process as part of our overall arching project, the Plan Morro Bay effort, which is a 25-year general plan process. There are restrooms in the back of the room over here, refreshments at the back, and please excuse yourself if you need to refuel or get some coffee. Moving forward, I just wanted to make sure everybody kind of shares the stage. We're going to be working in small groups this evening, and I think we have just about enough to fill up probably 4 tables. So what I'd like to do as we get ready for our workshop is to move to the front 4 tables, and we'll kind of disperse around those tables if you wouldn't mind. So we don't have to do that yet. I'll prompt you to do that in just a moment. So here we are this evening to talk a little bit about the community vision for the waterfront and the downtown areas. understand what that means to you, what you'd like to see in the future. We are actually looking at community preferences and understanding what you would like to see the future of Morro Bay look like in the downtown and waterfront areas. And we are actually looking at developing a list of short-term projects. So while the Plan Morro Bay effort is a long-term effort, we're looking at some strategic projects that can be done over the next 5 to 10 years that we can be working on while the general plan is being realized. So, moving forward. So as I mentioned, we're looking at the 5 to 10 year horizon for this project. We're really looking at defining physical connections, land uses, public spaces and streets, street improvements such as streetscaping, and unified brand, which you kind of meant mental marketing up in the front of the room, a unified brand to kind of guide some of the materials, the look and feel, perhaps street banners, however we'd like to use that as a city moving forward. I know there have been a lot of ideas over the past, so this is an opportunity to bring it together and look at what is our image, what is the look and feel of Morro Bay. And of course, develop a set of guidelines, both for public and private use, to guide street improvements, to guide future development. What do we love most about Morro Bay, and what do we want to see emulated in the future? We also are here to talk a little bit about a few objectives. That's what we were tasked with when we embarked on this effort. So, number one, developing a shared vision for the downtown waterfront, connecting downtown and the waterfront, and that may just be physically connecting or visually connecting. We kind of want to hear that from you this evening. We also want to, as I mentioned, develop a unified brand and a set of design guidelines to talk about what our identity is and what we want to be in the future, kind of perpetuate what's great and change what's not. Look at some policies and projects to achieve our vision for the downtown and waterfront area, and create a tool, the strategic plan tool, for staff to actually start going down the list and looking at what projects can be implemented sooner than later, the low-hanging fruit, getting things into our capital improvement project budget, and also giving a nod to the private sector to say, hey, these are some things that the community feels really strongly about. We'd like to see those implemented in the future as well. So everyone can really participate and use this tool. As far as a timeline, I've talked a little bit about the Plan Morro Bay process, and if you've been at the past workshops, just a curiosity, how many of you were at workshop number 1 back in July? Thank you. Okay, great. So the Plan Morro Bay effort is a long-term general plan process. Within that process, we are doing some other things. We're updating the local coastal program. We're going to be looking at the zoning code update. We're going to be doing environmental compliance. But for this effort, we're actually just focusing on, as a part of this timeline, on the downtown and waterfront, taking a little bit more time to look at the details here. So that's kind of how it all fits together. Now, it is confusing because there's been a lot of projects ongoing, parallel, and some of these things include the Economic Development Strategic Plan and Embarcadero widening Centennial Staircase. It's very easy to get them all confused, but what this effort is doing is looking at all of those processes together and making sure that we're making kind of a one-stop document and everything is very consistent and memorializes those ideas as they're developed. So ultimately, we started with a very detailed community baseline assessment in the Plan Morro Bay process, looked at the key issues and policies, moving towards land use alternatives, and of course, our downtown waterfront strategic plan will listen to all of those ideas and create a checklist and an action list for staff. And of course, here we are later in the process, we'll actually have a draft general plan too. So it all fits together. Might be a little confusing because there's a lot, but that's to be expected. It's a lot of planning and a long process. So community outreach, we had our workshop number 1. We started out with a phone survey. We have had a targeted outreach to stakeholders. We have had a general plan advisory committee group. We've had some focus group discussions. So there's been a lot of things done in the past few months, really since the beginning of the year. And you can see that here we are at our second workshop, public workshop. We'll have a third community workshop coming up, and we are still in the midst, actually, this week of some focus groups that are talking about the key issues and policies for the general plan. So moving forward, what we've heard through our outreach to date, and mostly from workshop number 1, but we've also taken some ideas about the downtown, and you'll see some of the materials tonight that are the next step. It's a refinement. So great. These are the ideas or the projects that we'd like to see in the future. Well, let's make sure we got this list right before we move forward. So you'll see some of those ideas from workshop number 1 infused into this workshop. But what we've heard, and I'll kind of just keep it high level, is that we want downtown and the waterfront to embrace its rich fishing industry and really value the working waterfront. We would like it to be a unique, eclectic, charming, and artistic place. We would like it to be vibrant and economically diverse, a range. I've heard quality. I've heard options of housing options, kind of a spectrum from kind of refining the words as we go with our help from the GPAC as well at our last meeting. We want it to celebrate memorable views and connections to and from the downtown, to the waterfront, and Mora Rock, to be a place with improved mobility options. So it's not just a place to drive, it is a place to walk, to take the trolley, to bike, and to showcase opportunities to discover and highlight Morro Bay's natural beauty. We're all very proud of our natural beauty here. And of course, to support a thriving and robust local economy. So with that, we're going to take a little moment to do a quick I'm going to call it an icebreaker activity. What I want to remind you all as we move forward is that we do have some ground rules. It's very important, and it'll be more fun. The first rule is to have fun, of course. But if you could take a look around and make sure that you're not hogging the floor. Everybody has a great idea to share, and we want to make sure everybody gets a chance to share it this evening. Make sure that we're all here for a very limited amount of time. We want to make sure we get all of our information onto our paper before the end of the workshop. So be mindful of the times, and I'll be timekeeper this evening. Also, if you can silence your cell phones, that would be wonderful, or take your calls. Everybody's busy, we understand. Go ahead and step out and take your calls if you need. So before we start with our small group activities, I'd like you to go ahead and, if you can just disperse yourself amongst these first 4 tables. I hate to make everybody get up. They all look really comfortable. You want to do 5? Okay. All right. That's a great idea. So if this back table could go ahead and intermingle, we'll keep 5 tables. If we could also have our GPAC members make sure that they are distributed amongst our 5 tables, that would be great, as well as our facilitators. So facilitators, go ahead and introduce yourselves to your group, and we'll start with our first little icebreaker activity. Yeah. We had 10 minutes. All right. I don't know how everybody's coming along, but it looks like most groups are wrapping up their icebreaker activity. So if you haven't already shared, go ahead and share that with your group, and we'll get started on the next activity, which is our design preferences activity. All right. So if I can have your attention up here, we'll go ahead and get started on our next 45-minute exercise. I'm glad everybody's nice and warmed up because we wouldn't want to be short of conversation. This is great. It's what we're supposed to do here tonight. Okay, so our next activity is our design preferences activity. Now, the purpose of this activity is to help inform and kind of get a finger on the pulse of what the community preferences are. We are, as part of this process, tasked for developing some design guidelines. And those can be for public improvements. What do we want our streetscapes to look like? They are also, could just be in reference to shop fronts, storefronts, can be in reference to signs. So we're really looking at ideas that resonate well with you. So we wanted to take you on a little bit of a virtual tour of some of areas that you're very familiar with, some images that you will be familiar with. What you're going to do is kind of look at themes, different themes. There's a couple of those. Really, they kind of fall into a couple different categories, but we want to understand your themes for your preferences on design themes for the downtown and waterfront. Maybe one and the same, maybe very different. Character-defining elements of buildings. I'll talk about that in just a moment, what that really means. Streets and public space furnishings, gateway features, signage, and really because we want to understand what the look and feel of Morro Bay will be in the future. What we want to perpetuate more of, what we love about some of the development that's happening or the buildings from the past and what we want to emulate. So when I say character-defining building elements, I don't mean architectural style per se. I think that we've heard a lot about how eclectic and fun Morro Bay is and how beautiful it is and how creative it is. It doesn't have to necessarily pertain to style, but it does pertain to features. Sometimes you'll see things that are representative of a maritime or seaside architecture, and those could be, some of the porthole windows and more, the glass to take advantage of the views. Windows, awnings, towers, roof forms, also different types of colors, brights, neutrals. What types of materials are appropriate for Morro Bay? Wood, glass, stone, metal. So we want to start a little bit and talk about public space furnishings and streets. So streetscaping. We are at a point where we have a lot of different signs. We have some really great eclectic feel now. People are putting benches out, some different planters in front of their storefronts. What exactly do we want the future to look like as far as our main street, our downtown area, and our waterfront area? Do we want it to look the same? Do we want it to look different? Those are some questions we're going to be asking you. So with respect to benches, planters, lighting, and all of these other items that are kind of decorative elements, they can have a creative flair. They can be very consistent and uniform to kind of bring everything together. So be thinking about what we want to look like in the future. How about gateways? So gateways can include welcome signs, arches, our roundabout, pillars, public art and murals, landmark buildings, an obelisk, all sorts of different things and symbols. And the reason we have these is to kind of help define or orient people. Oh, look, there's something down here. I should probably keep going. This is definitely a gateway, and it announces arrival. I have arrived. I am now in Morro Bay. I am now in downtown. I am now in our civic district. I am now on our waterfront. So it really helps welcome and orient people who may not be familiar and help you celebrate who you are. You only get one chance to make a first impression. So what do we want that to look like? So one of the questions, as I mentioned earlier, is we want to be kind of understanding. We've heard some really strong opinions on this, but we want to know your opinions tonight. This is a downtown and waterfront strategic plan. Do we want the downtown and waterfront to be the same, to complement one another and be somehow thematic but somehow different? Or do we want them to be completely distinctly different? So be thinking about that and share your ideas at your small group activity. Most of the themes that we're going to be talking about tonight and some of the elements in Morro Bay today really fall into a couple categories. A traditional Main Street architecture and style, modern or contemporary. We have some of those buildings kind of here and there, something eclectic, a little bit quirky and fun and creative, and then nautical or seaside. So we've kind of designed this to kind of fall into some categories and ask you about your preferences on these. So in Morro Bay, here's a couple of examples of what's on the ground as far as traditional style in Morro Bay. You'll see some of these elements such as arches, detailed ironwork, some of the transom windows kind of up at the top of a storefront. Those are all, and of course the masonry. These are all elements of a traditional, really downtown architecture. Some of the other items, really include wood, stone, some of those other materials that you'll see a lot, some of the smooth coat stucco. In other communities, here's some examples from other, actually somewhat seaside communities such as Manhattan Beach. They've got a lot of different types and styles. You'll see more of the awnings, balconies, And decorative trim, a little bit Victorian. Some vertical siding, board and batten, shiplap. You hear these terms kind of all go with that as well. In a modern contemporary kind of style, we have a couple buildings here that represent that style. I think the most recent example is the fire station, the new fire station. And they have simple forms and shapes, horizontal bands of windows. We all know in this building very well, and right on the waterfront. So these are kind of elements that emulate what's going on as far as modern and contemporary in our community. In other communities, you'll see more of the glass wall element. This is actually a library. Some of the other simple forms and shapes, horizontal bands of windows, and mixed materials such as steel and wood kind of mixed together. We have some eclectic / quirky, you could say Art Deco buildings in Morro Bay as well, and you'll see some of the bright colors, some interesting retro style, and very neat kind of window elements and decorative and ornate detail on your buildings. In other communities, they could be figurative elements. They could be interesting paint motifs, bright colors. What does that mean, and how much do we want, and how much do we want to guide? Our guidelines can be very flexible and encourage creativity, or they could, kind of bring things in and say we want a little bit more consistency. We have the choice to do that in this exercise tonight. As far as nautical and seaside, we have several buildings that actually the majority of our waterfront buildings have slanted roof forms, some of the board and batten and pitched roofs, some of these nautical elements like a window that's a little bit more like a porthole, completely exaggerated nautical element here, and some of the natural wood siding on our waterfront. In other communities, you'll see things such as tower elements. You can see the pitched roofs, wood siding and or shingles. So that is really about the character-defining elements for buildings. Now we want to talk a little bit about street and public space furnishing styles. And this is really just a primer to get you ready for the exercise in the worksheet that you'll have in front of you. We'll talk about in just a few moments. So in Morro Bay, here's some of the traditional elements that you'll see in downtown, some of the traditional kind of lamppost lighting, simple forms and planters and benches, concrete or little cobblestone planters. In other communities, you'll see some of these other elements that are a little bit more of the Main Street traditional. Some creative bike racks, more of the traditional Main Street light fixtures and furnishings, and this is a very traditional trash receptacle and bench that are you'll see in a lot of downtowns as well. There's also modern and contemporary. Here we don't have a lot of examples of those here, but here's some ideas. Some of the light fixtures that are a little bit more modern. Kind of more of the cantilever bench, a little bit more figurative, some really creative benches with different materials. Looks like we've got cast concrete, some bent wood, some metal. And in Morro Bay, we have some streetscape furnishings that represent sort of the seaside or nautical. Of course, our little iconic pelican, which you can see in some of our materials we've played with. You can see some other elements here, the post and rope kind of ideas, and the planters, the half-barrel planters. In other communities, maybe there's some more exaggerated forms, but looking at, nautical knots and benches maybe represent nautical figures, something a little bit more literal, bike racks or just public art as well. Eclectic artsy. Morro Bay had no shortage of creative, colorful streetscape furnishings, some very clever ideas here, and a lot of color as well. So you can see some of the furnishings that are currently there. Here's some other examples of how other communities have taken it to another level as far as colorful and artistic, as far as just artistic elements attached to their light poles, creative bike rack, some other elements that can just be integrated into the streetscape aside from a typical light pole. And now, as far as gateway features, you can see at Morro Bay, this is what you see when this announces kind of arrival into the community at one end. There's also archways, a couple different communities here. Pillars and columns, even obelisks in some other communities. Some really clever sculptural art. This is interesting. This is actually called, I think it's a light window, but this is actually a view to the ocean. And at sunset, at a certain day of the year, it just aligns perfectly. So it's kind of a sort of a sundial / art piece, but it's very interesting. So a lot of people have done some really interesting things, large anchors, all of those great things. And welcome signs. There's some traditional and typical. We kind of want to think about what we want to look like to visitors, or what would make us happy when we come home from San Luis Obispo and we see our entry sign. What says Morro Bay to us? And now there's some private signage. We have some really neat things going on. I think there's a really interesting collection, and next to one another, that kind of contrast is really interesting. It's creating a lot of fun on Main Street, and a lot of clever ideas springing up with lots of color. Here's some more traditional signs. You can kind of see the Old Town Morro Bay signage, and of course our Bay Theater. Here's something a little bit more modern and simple in style, not necessarily from Morro Bay. Some more of the municipal wayfinding in more of a modern tone. Figurative and whimsical. Figurative meaning using, the sign to actually say what it is. You've seen an optical lens store with glasses on the front, so you know what it is before you've read the sign. Well, this is the Kettle restaurant, and they've got a big kettle and Harbor Hut, a nice little hut up there. Nautical and rustic. You can see them bringing in some themes from a Western or, a little bit more of the waterfront kind of approach here. So what our task is to work with your group to have a very thoughtful discussion about what the design theme should be for the downtown and or waterfront. Some of those are one and the same, and sometimes, and again, we'd like to know whether you think those should be unique or similar. Want you to talk about the character-defining elements, streets and public space furnishings, gateway features, and the signage that we just kind of ran through, kind of gave you an orientation. So you've seen some of the images. The images that you'll see on your worksheet in front of you, your very large worksheet, are not necessarily representative of that style. They're just a few examples of that. So if you can't stand one of those images, that's totally fine. It's the idea that we're going for. If you don't love the rope, but it says nautical, then imagine one of the other ideas and examples in that. So we're going to have about 45 minutes or so to kind of work as a group and take some sticky dots that you have at your table. You'll see some blue and some yellow. And you have 4 of each. So go ahead and we'll pass those out in just a moment. You're going to take the yellow sticky dots and you're going to put those next to the elements that you feel are most appropriate. And your facilitators will give you these instructions again, are most appropriate for the downtown. And then you use your blue dots for those elements that you think are best and most appropriate for the waterfront. So with that, I'll be coming around to help with any questions, but I go ahead and start your 45 minutes now, and I'll give you a warning when we're ready to slow it down and wrap up.
a mixed one. He isn't as white as her. It's how I feel. We got that, but I think it's working. We've got a traditional up downstairs. I think we've got a variety going tonight. Here's what I like. It's an eclectic look. It's more eclectic than what do you think? Yeah. Now, I don't know how. But, and I think it's, yeah. And we have, I have a store downtown. Come in all the time, we see that's what we like about town. Reminds them of an old beach town. You know, things just kind of kept springing up and it was just different. It wasn't the same everywhere. You know, they just like houses. There's no tracks here. Beach track. Yeah. But you're right. Oysters. And that's, yeah, and that's weird. Excessive. I mean, do you agree with that? I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I think there might have been some, but not.
I know. Interesting. You might want us to see what they say too, because we'll probably wrap it up in about 20 minutes or so. But it would be really interesting to see it once everybody's voted. That would be a really interesting yeah, we have a really fun entity. It's just a lot of
It's frustrating. So what are you guys doing?
Yeah, we just finished the highway 41 corridor study, so getting connecting complete street, cycle tracks, connecting downtown, the city hall to the movie theater to the lake park. So how are we going to get? When I was a kid, I used to be able to ride my bike up Highway 41. People not texting, they were still driving. It was just like that. So much change has happened, and there's an opportunity for going in the gaps and sidewalks, constant bike lanes. Right now, it's confusing because it jogs, stops, and then there's sidewalks to and then you literally have a caution, don't fall into the ditch, don't fall into the swale signs, so when caution is running on the trail, there's going to be how do we want to route it out? So that's the way to do it. So they have
Through MBI or just on your side?
Michael Baker, we were their outreach consultants. Oh, got it. They were my sub for Second Santa Rosa. They're very multimodal. They focus on streets.
Yeah.
They were on cycle tracks and stuff. So they've yeah. So and then some Bob is big members too. Okay. They Ponce trails, connecting all of the different Ponce trails throughout the Central Coast. So I did the Salinas River with the trail, and then we're doing the
Up in Paso.
Yeah. Actually, it's San Miguel to Santa Margarita. It's the master plan for this
Master plan, yeah.
So we got to do that. So we and then we're now we just implemented this Price Canyon section of it where we're connecting slow all the way through Price Canyon to Pismo.
I'm excited for all of that.
Yeah. Imagine you fly into slow airport, you get your stuff goes into the shuttle, it just goes to your hotel. It's a full ecotourism experience where you get on your, you swipe your credit card, take a bike, you go to downtown, when you're done, you can ride all the way to Pismo, you go under Outlet, you just, it's like this whole thing. So for you and everyone, just together to get you what you need. We're the happiest place on earth. We have these, the ideas that are together are so big, they're so real, and they're not that fun to implement. Right. People really have that. If everyone got their bike, their bike share program set up.
I saw
We make a leader cutting edge. I was going to say. And you can appreciate that of anyone, right? I know. So much development and from beginning to end. Oh, no. Not yet, it's too far. And then I think we'll probably come here when I was a kid. And I stayed in the house, so we beach and stuff. And didn't have to go there. We were able to take the opportunity. We were into the flea market. We were at the beach and something. We got the most of the time because we were at the beach, playing games and doing this.
All right, everybody. I hate to stop the discussion. It's been so great and colorful. In just a few minutes, we're going to go ahead and wrap up and do our key themes. I'll bring the microphone around to the facilitators. So go ahead and wrap up your last thought about your kind of organizing your thoughts for key themes, and I'll be around in just a moment.
Do you want to go first?
Okay, if we could have everybody wrap up their last thoughts. We're going to go ahead and go around the room and have each facilitator do a quick recap of the key themes that emerged from your exercise. You don't have to have 3, but it'll be neat to share and see how everybody else kind of came to some conclusions at their table. And I'll start with Christelle.
All right, thank you. So we had a really lively, robust conversation over here. The themes that came out were that there was a desire to have the downtown and waterfront be distinctly different, and a little bit of support for some elements that connected them and tied them together, but overall a feeling that you were in a different place when you were in each location. There was also a strong desire for keeping things aligned with the existing character, and so we talked about, how do you make sure that when new development happens, that it's going to be in keeping with the existing look and feel and the small scale character of the community. And so that led to a conversation about guidelines that are flexible and allow for creativity. And then finally, there was overall a sense that the downtown is great the way it is, and that the waterfront is great the way it is, and that came out in the sticky notes in the sticky dots in terms of folks saying, eclectic and quirky downtown, nautical, seaside theme by the waterfront, and then a desire for some structural artistic elements and figurative whimsical elements in both places.
All right, who wants to go next? Amy, how about?
Well, I hope my group will agree that we had a lot of similarities to your group. In terms of the themes, yes, for the most part, it's very important to this group to maintain the identities of both parts of Morro Bay. For downtown, traditional with a second choice of eclectic and artsy, so both of those things kind of combined together. And then for the waterfront, nautical, except for on the gateway features, the choice there was primarily for sculptural or art. So I think that pretty much sums it up. We had a great discussion and a lot of other points were made, but those were the themes that emerged from the voting.
Thank you. How about Scott's group?
We had, as far as where the place the sticky dots under the character and the building elements, the preference was for a nautical seaside theme down on the waterfront, which is probably not all that surprising. Between the two areas and how to connect them, I think the key theme from the group was to keep them complementary but different because they're distinct areas, and then to try to, through this process, I think, come up with ways to, connect them. And one of those ways might be through the street furnishings and streetscape furnishings, because some of the group, at least a smattering of them, put both for the downtown and the waterfront that they liked the eclectic aspect of street furnishings, and so that seemed to be a theme that could do that connection between the two. And then lastly, there was also a desire to have traditional streetscape furnishings shown here, so that was kind of a little bit of a deviation from the eclectic, but we thought you could sprinkle them through the area to have the eclectic things here and there to sort of create that tie together, along with streetscape furnishings that are more traditional.
But also, we don't want to stifle creativity by boxing in on a particular style. We want to make room for something that is unique and arresting.
Arresting. Good adjective, arresting. Great. And Joan's group?
Our group is, again, very similar. Our dots are focused down here primarily in the nautical and eclectic areas, again keeping complementary but different design themes between the two locations. And We spoke a lot about connecting, getting people to walk from downtown to the Embarcadero and from the Embarcadero up, ways to draw people down, possibly moving the farmers market or closing off the street over the weekend for pedestrian traffic only and things of that nature.
A couple of specific, really great ideas I thought had to do with the art and sculpture concept. And I think Darren had the idea to put, one of our favorites was one of the bronze sculptures, put that at the end of Morro Bay Boulevard near Dorn so that it kind of draws you down Morro Bay Boulevard. And if you're down at the waterfront, it'll draw you up to Morro Bay Boulevard. We thought that was a pretty exciting idea. Then there was another idea about using bollards to shut off the street so that you physically combine Morro Bay Boulevard with the waterfront certain times of the weekend. So it'd be a pedestrian area, so there'd be a pedestrian connection right there, like maybe turning the farmer's market in a different direction. So there'd be a physical connection with some bollards as kind of an experiment to connect the two areas. Sorry.
No problem. Great. All right. And Ryan's group.
We had a lot of the similar themes that we talked about. Also distinct design characteristics between downtown and the waterfront, but also trying to connect those two. And there was talk about maybe using the Bluff area as kind of the location where you combine those two design themes. One thing we talked about towards the end was having kind of a traditional base, and then on top of that adding, you can make that traditional base kind of pop with adding artistic and nautical features to that. Because there was talk about how the old Morro Bay, way back when, was kind of more traditional in the downtown area. And then going off of kind of there was not a funny thing that would be really cool about the kind of converting the smokestacks of the old power plant to something interesting. I don't know if you guys want bungee jumping.
Yeah, I think I heard lighthouse. I think I heard light show. I heard elevator, glass elevator, zip line. I heard paintball target. Wow. Okay. Well, that was really great, and thanks everybody for sharing their ideas. Now, don't take your thinking caps off, because we're going to move into our next exercise. We're going to have about 45 minutes to talk a little bit about catalyst projects and near-term projects that we'd like to see in the next 5 to 10 years, or at least projects that we'd like to start looking for funding for the next 5 to 10 years, regardless. So we want to talk a little bit about the where, the what, and the why would we want this project. The first thing we're going to do is you're going to work with your facilitator. You're going to get some dots, some small dots, and you're going to look at a map that's been developed through our planning process thus far. You'll see this map. This is the one I referenced that we brought to you at Workshop 1. We were still refining project boundaries. We are still refining project boundaries to see what is our actual scope of the downtown and waterfront area that we'd like to define. We are going to ask you to take a look at what sites that you think are the priority areas for public or private projects. This is a list that's already been developed through our workshop number 1, our discussions with the General Plan Advisory Committee, our discussions with staff, our discussions with stakeholders in kind of a focus group or interview setting. And we really like to make sure we're not missing anything. So this is about a 10-minute exercise. If you guys can talk about this with your facilitators and let us know if we're missing anything from this list, we'll go ahead and move on to what kind of ideas we'd like to see here next. I'll give you a heads up when we've got about 2 minutes left. I just wanted to let you know in just a moment or two, we're going to switch over to the what from the where. Where are we looking at and what projects are we looking at in just a moment. I did want to call something out real quickly on the agenda. There's a little discrepancy about an 8 o'clock versus an 8:30 stop time. We were planning on going to 8:30 this evening, so I just wanted to make sure everybody did have that down so that they could be prepared to stay for the entire conversation. If not, we'll go ahead and continue moving forward to the next activity regardless. And in just a moment, you should be moving on to the what types of projects would we like to see in the downtown and waterfront. Thank you.
So you can
Yeah. Then next to that is a corporate yard. Next to that is a park. You know where people is? You know where Light Kaiser Park is? Okay. If you go now, yeah, 41. Then it goes to me. Water and go.
Yeah, so like if you're going to put it over here, this column, if you like these two, then you put one down here and another, or if you like this one, then you put it yeah, project, yeah, which project.
If you haven't already begun your why discussion, now is probably a good time to start transitioning to your top projects and why you think those are most appropriate. Okay, we should be winding down and wrapping up our conversations in the next few minutes. Go ahead and take some time and wrap up your discussion and thoughts. We've got about 5 more minutes. All right, everybody. If I could have your attention, please. See, everybody's still having fun at their tables, which is fantastic. All right, so we wanted to go ahead and wrap this up and move on to our next steps and tell you how you can stay involved in upcoming meetings. What we'll do, we won't have a report back. We'll go ahead and leave our information out on the table so everyone can kind of mill around and see how other tables kind of cast their opinions and votes. I just wanted to say thank you for all spending your evening with us. We know how hard it is to come by 2.5 hours in the middle of a week to spend with us. And so, this is a very important topic, and we're so glad you felt so as well, and you're here to stay with us for the evening. But we did want everyone to know about how to stay involved in the project. Coming up on October 20th from 4 to 6 p.m. is the General Plan Advisory Committee meeting, and you are all welcome to attend. It will be here. And when we are there, we'll be sharing kind of our initial findings from the Community Baseline Assessment Report and taking comments from the GPAC, the General Plan Advisory Committee. You're also welcome to provide comments at those meetings as well. We have a public comment period, and at any future GPAC meeting. Those are on the third Thursday of every month. So please, again, join us. We also will have a public comment period following this meeting as part of our GPAC discussion. Another thing I'd like you to do is check the website for future participation opportunities. We will have an upcoming workshop. It'll be in the next couple months, so we'll make sure if you did give us your information up front, we will go ahead and let you know. And, of course, the word gets out in our small town of Morro Bay very quickly. One other thing is the Chamber of Commerce let us know that there is a guest speaker speaker on October 27th here at the Vets Hall, starting at 8 a.m. It is Roger Brooks, and lunch is actually included, and it's a free event. And he is doing he's a motivational speaker, and he is doing a presentation, once in a lifetime opportunity for helping craft the best destination for residents, businesses, and tourism. So this is a chamber event they'd like you to join us for. So with that, I will go ahead and give you some time to mill around the room. But first and foremost, and so you can check out what everybody else at all the other tables, what they discussed and some of the ideas that they shared. But we do want to go ahead and invite Dr. Teft back up to go ahead and host our public comment or facilitate our public comment period. If you'd like to stick around, please do. If you'd like to participate, or if you haven't shared anything that you'd like to share, we do I'll give that opportunity. Otherwise, go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Teft.
Just one thing I would add, for those of you who are really interested in this process, when you go to the Plan Morro Bay page, click on the link that says Project Documents. There are a lot of public comments there. There are a lot of analyses from GPAC members that should be of interest to you. So that there's kind of in the second set of links, there's a link called Plan Documents. Take a look at that section. Then I'm just going to open this up for general public comment. Anyone who would like to have the microphone, please step forward. We'd love to hear from you.
Just a quick question regarding the sewage treatment plant. Given that I understand that project, there's a project to replace the sewage treatment plant, correct? So my quick question regarding that is, since it sort of connects to the Embarcadero across the the new pedestrian bridge and all that, and sort of connects to my neighborhood, North Morro Bay, is there a specific reason we're not looking at that as sort of an opportunity site at this time, and or why is it maybe not part of this planning process at this point? That's a fantastic question. It is an opportunity site for the city, not unlike the Dynegy site at this point. We're supposed to be building the new wastewater treatment plant and have it operational in 6 to 7 years. And so over the next couple of years, we'll be looking at reuse plans for that area. In fact, going to be working with Cal Poly, one of their landscape architecture classes currently right now, to come up with some ideas just to sort of start the process kind of moving forward. But we will be moving forward with probably a master plan type situation for the redevelopment of that site, looking at what could be there, whether it's more sports facilities, since we have Lilac Kaiser Park right adjacent to there, and the new pools going into the high school. And then maybe a hotel facility or something along those lines, or maybe more recreational facilities. That could be a focal point for that area, because you can't have a lot of structures in there because much of the area is in the floodplain. So that's kind of what we're looking at.
And I think that entire area will be part of the land use planning process of the general plan. GPAC's not quite to that point yet. We're still dealing with kind of baseline assessment and major issues, but the land use element is part of the general plan, and that discussion is definitely going to be part of that process.
I would like to follow up on that. Right now, the consultants that are working on the WRF, there's plans to put a huge lift station right there at the same site, and I'm not in agreement with that. I think that we have a better choice going to the concrete plant and eliminating that lift station, but they're planning on using it for industrial purposes right now. That's all their projects that they had out of town are relative to putting a lift station at that spot.
I'm Erica Crawford with the Chamber of Commerce. Just a minor correction or a major one. That is actually not a chamber event. That's a city tourism. Jennifer Little has coordinated that. I'm helping her with the effort. The next chamber event is in November. It's a membership summit. We'll talk about workforce development. We'll do a little bit of this. Our mayor will be giving a keynote speech, and that is on, when is that? The 16th of November. Yeah. So that's our next event for the chamber. Thank you.
Anyone else? Scott has the microphone. Okay. Well, seeing none then, we will adjourn the current GPAC meeting to our next regularly scheduled meeting, which I believe is next Thursday. Yep. And it will be here in the Betts Hall.
Mm-hmm.